Hello everyone and welcome to game 3 not game 3, game 5 in the series between Slivko and OGS's SuperNova here on Shattered Temple. The games have been pretty interesting so far. Games 1 and games 2, so far the best games of the match where you really couldn't predict the winner up until the very end. There's just your typical StarCraft match going back and forth. Games 3 and game 4 felt a little bit more one-sided as Slivko was able to really just simply dominate the game. We'll see if that trend will continue, or if that trend will continue, or if I cast these games out of order just because the website was all funked up. Now, SuperNova spawning here at the 6 o'clock location as the red Terran player, Slivko spawning as the teal Zerg player here at the 9 o'clock position. So red versus teal here on Shatter Temple, a map that a lot of people say generally favor Terran. I would normally agree with that. The third base is a little bit more difficult to establish for a Zerg player. There are destructible rocks. Trying to build any base that isn't that doesn't have destructible rocks is a little bit more of a runaway. But then again, a lot of Zerg players have really figured out the timing for Zerg, and it really feels like Zerg is getting, and more players are just learning how to play Zerg better and better, establishing that macro hatch inside the base, or even using it as part of the front door around the 7-minute mark now. And that has become the common occurrence as Slivko very carefully comes in with the Overlord, and he comes in at the right time to see whether or not a refinery is placed down. Refinery does have 3 SCVs on gas, as we now see that the front door barracks is being built. We'll see what SuperNova does do here. A Marine most likely will be trained, and then perhaps adding a supply depot here in just a moment. Now, no supply depot yet, meaning that we could be going into a faster factory, and Marine already being trained, and we'll see what will come of this. The delay on the supply depot shouldn't really make that much of a difference, if anything at all. A drone now making its way out as an SCV going to, nope, it is not going to establish a bunker as I thought it normally would have. That would have been a very safe call, but he wants to make sure to see if there's any gas as of yet. He doesn't, I don't think he even spotted the geysers. No, he didn't even spot the geysers, so if he is going to go for a bunker, he could have done it much sooner. I don't like the fact that SuperNova is kind of delayed with that bunker, as if he pulled the SCV earlier, then the drones would not really be able to do nearly as much. The drones now have a hatchery to go to, as an SCV and a Marine are battling it out. One SCV does go down. There are 2 Marines in this group, but SuperNova just kind of sloppy with that play. We are building up a reactor. We are going into Hellions now, but so far Slivko going for that gasless expand, should be able to get up a spine crawler here, and then with double queens being added, I don't think SuperNova will really be able to deal that much damage. SuperNova now establishing his own command center at the natural expansion, trying to catch up in this economic game. Hellions are being double trained, and we'll see what will come of this. Hellions do work well against Zerglings. The Zerglings are not going to have metabolic boost for quite some time, and if those Hellions are able to really just overrun the Zerg position, then things can go very well for SuperNova. It's just a matter of timing on whether or not SuperNova can actually get enough Hellions to deal damage. Currently sitting on 4 Hellions, should be, or 2 Hellions with 2 more on the way. Drones are being added. Zerglings just sitting at the top of the ramp, and there's not much that these Hellions can do. And Terran really having a little bit of a difficult time trying to punish this Zerg for this fast expansion attempt. You can see Hellions are in position here. More Hellions going to be added. Command center about to be completed, and we'll see whether or not SuperNova tries to establish his own in-base command center as well to train up more SCVs and not fall behind economically. Zerglings waiting at the top of the ramp and trapping all of these Hellions here. Beautifully done. Slivko very much in control of the game so far. 23 SCVs, 33 drones. The Hellions are not really going to deal that much damage at all, as 1 drone does get taken out, but taking a look at the total losses, still much higher for SuperNova, as the macro hatch is coming in at around the 7-minute mark. Hellion just still backing off over here. You're going to see the Overlord now in the air, keeping track of where that Hellion is going. Very good creep spread. The Hellion knows that if it tries to run back down the ramp, it is pretty much going to die anyways, as there is a Spine Crawler there ready to get off 2 easy quick hits. The Hellion now down to 46 hit points, and now this will just be a matter of time before the Hellion does get destroyed. And now Slivko with a 14 food advantage, 15 drone advantage, or a worker advantage at this point. And with a 3rd hatchery already completed, drones coming off the mineral line. 1 drone does get destroyed for a total of 2 worker kills. 16 workers compared, 16 worker difference between these 2 bases. Now, there is an Overlord now in the air, just simply flying by. It is going to gain a little bit more sight once again, keeping track of what's going on inside the base. It does see the supply drop, an extra 8 additional supply for that supply depot there. Marines now making their way in, and Slivko trying to see and trying to get some tech scouting. The Overlord not going to be able to get there in time at all, as 1 Overlord has been shot down, 71 over 70, and not really showing much of anything. Marines now going to jump inside the medevac. Stim has already been completed. Combat shield now being added, as a drop could be coming in momentarily. Baneling's Nest not yet quite done, and there will be a very small window of opportunity to attack. The Marines do have Stim, and now the medevacs do need a drop. Marines are dropping 2 at a time with the help of 2 medevacs. Marines perhaps need to Stim down here in just a moment, taking down 1, and now in come the Marines with Stim. Zergling's now going to try to engage. Marines doing a good job doing that stutter step. The Spine Crawler going to try to reroute. What's going to happen here is the Zerglings engaging off over here. Some Roaches joining in on the fight, and the Queens with that very, very long range, that quad queen strategy coming in from Slivko, really working out well, minimizing the damage, as Queen's so effective at shooting at medevacs and really slowing them down. Zergling's looking to take down the destructible rocks here, as Slivko knows he needs to establish up a new base, already up to 53 workers. Marines now being dropped at the Overlord here up on the center plateau. It will get cleaned up, but really SuperNova not trying to expand all too much. He perhaps needs to get up another expansion already, or at least start a command center so that he can take the expansion when the time comes. 3 hatcheries versus 2 command centers. Zergling's still on patrol. 1 medevac off over here, going to try to shoot down this Overlord. The Overlord is taking a bit of damage, but the Zerglings are going to get there in time, and the Marines do Stim and then jump back up into that medevac. Queens, what is Slivko doing? Those Queens could have been easily cleaned up. Not quite sure what SuperNova doesn't have that much map sense, and you can now see destructible rocks are being destroyed, but no command center to land there, as we now have Marines running in again. Infestation pit, evolution chamber trying to be destroyed. It doesn't look like it will go down. The medevac able to pick everything back up and save it once more, as Slivko now even on food, 100 to 104, or almost even, with a little bit of a larger army, but also less workers. Marines now pushing their way through. The Zerglings trying to get within melee range on those Marines. The medevac picking up the units again, as we now have a large group of Marines coupled with 3 siege tanks attempting this push out. The Marines are all simply going to be healed here. Siege tanks may cliff this ledge and start barreling up on that front door. Marines also stimming their way forward, going to destroy a lot of these creep tumors, but there are banelings now being added, and as it's going to be an elevator drop up onto the high ground. Marines coming back over. Queens now coming in. Overlord's going to get shot down as well. 3 siege tanks, 4 siege tanks now being added in this group. And how much damage can be had? Zerglings still need to be retrained. The Zerglings do have armor upgrades, so the siege tanks need a couple of shots in order to destroy them. Banelings finding their Marines, as the drones even joining in on the fight. One siege tank down to 6 hit points, still joining in. It looks like the Queen could try to come in for a slash. The siege tank already up to 10 kills. Marines are being dropped down, as perhaps SuperNova needs to get another escort of Marines up onto the high ground. Overlords now simply flying straight into the group of Marines off over here, so SuperNova losing a lot of resources without dealing any real damage. Overlord down to 35 hit points. Baneling's Nest needs to be destroyed as a 4th hatchery being established here at the 12 o'clock expansion location. We'll see what's going to happen. The Baneling's Nest down to 500 hit points. The Marines need to jump inside, able to do exactly that as the units are all off on the cliff here trying to shell up onto the high ground. Command center going to be landing off, perhaps establishing up a planetary fortress. Marines once again taking down another creep tumor as the Marines are trying to engage, but the roaches have to be very, very careful. Siege tanks unable to get any damage up onto that hatchery now, just outside of range. A lot of damage with those Marines though, as one hatchery will fall. Broodlings will come out, and that may cause some accidental splash damage from some more siege tanks. Roaches are hatching as well. Spine Crawler now poking away at a couple Marines. So far, it is 128 versus 113. SuperNova really in dominant control of this game. And really, with this planetary fortress here, I cannot imagine this gold mineral patch falling anytime soon. The Marines, once again, being picked up and then perhaps dropped back down. The siege tanks with a lot of kills here on the low ground, providing cover as the Marines go in and apply pressure. A couple more Marines were taken out here as Overlords once again and not being protected by Slivko, and Slivko is going to have to retrain. A larva even getting killed there. Not quite sure what the true loss was, but more and more Marines engaging back and forth. Overlords all getting cleaned up here as the Marines are upgraded 1-0, and still more units are being added to this group. You can see a large number of Zerglings. Siege tanks were caught out of siege mode. That is going to hurt as the Marines try to fight back here. SuperNova does have a slight food advantage. Infestors now getting off some fungal growths. Roaches up on the high ground. Medevac sniping down. Medevac getting sniped down by a queen as the Marines all now try to regroup and retrain. SuperNova does have a small skeleton army back at his front door. Zergling's going to get cleaned up there as the Infestors do get taken out as well. So Slivko sitting at 46 drones compared to 56 SCVs. And SuperNova so far being very dominant with this pressure. Level 1 weapons upgrade completed. Level 1 armor upgrade still not completed. Not quite sure what SuperNova is waiting for. Reactor on the starport, double training medevacs. The destructible rocks over here have not been destroyed as SuperNova now building up an additional factory and 2 more barracks. A lot of production buildings so far as the bases are starting to mine out in the main. Medevac needs to be very careful where it's going to fly. Some fancy flying in between the cliffs here, allowing the Marines to be unloaded in relative safety as SuperNova is currently supply blocked 137 over 137. No more supply depots being added. Meanwhile, 5 more Overlords being added as well as he is supply blocked. Marines once again going to drop over here at the gold mineral patch, getting in some damage onto some of these drones. Zerglings now trying to make their way over. Is it going to be enough? A fungal growth does hit as the Marines cleaning up a lot of the center portion of the map, and we'll see what will happen next. A new command center finally being established. There is an overseer off over here. It doesn't see anything as there is nothing there to spot. It looks like the medevac down to 7 hit points. Another fungal growth does stop it, but SuperNova looking to once again follow this attack up with more siege tanks. The main base is now rebuilding the hatchery. The lair was destroyed. Marines once again going to re-engage. The queen now in a bit of trouble. The Marines need to jump back inside that medevac. Will they be able to do so? There, 1 siege tank, 1 queen does go down. More queens may go down if they do get focus fire, and it looks like they are getting focus fire. Slivko cannot afford to lose all of these queens. 1 queen goes down, a 2nd queen goes down. No, not enough transfusions as the roaches now getting shelled again. 1 siege tank left in the back there. That is a lot of infestors. SuperNova still has a slight food advantage, but quickly losing that advantage as all the medevacs are now retreating. You can see 4 medevacs now retreating here. This 1 command center needs to lift off. Slivko now with a larger army, and we'll see what will come of that as he does have 1,000 resource advantage at this point. Command center now attempting to lift off. It looks like the Marines and the siege tanks and Marauders are going to finish off the destructible rocks off over here. The command center could land and establish a new base here. That's where I would normally assume it would go, as infestors are now making their way out onto the field. Slivko doing a great job staying in this game and now evening up the food count. Harvester count still in favor of Nova though. So Nova still has a slight advantage, but will he be able to continue it as Marines and Marauders going to destroy this hatchery here? Slivko not going to be able to establish up his new base that quickly, not even canceled in time, as Zerglings now finally swarm in. This command center not upgrading to an orbital command. More refineries being added, 156 versus 144, as Zerglings now look to perhaps destroy these destructible rocks. Marauders and Marines with one roach in the center portion of the map. All of these Marauders and Marines are going to have a very bad day. The Zerglings deciding to back off here. Planetary Fortress as another command center being established as well. We'll see what will happen. Nova with these 6 gold mineral patches may strip mine this very quickly with those SCVs. I don't see any mules being called in at all as level 3 weapons upgrade and level 1 armor upgrades. There is a medevac. Marines are now being unloaded. There is another fungal growth. This is going to get cleaned up very quickly, and down that goes as another drop now being being positioned off over here. SuperNova has to be careful. No hatchery here. Now going to perhaps try to start focusing down Banelings. Banelings getting taken down very, very quickly. And now the Zerglings finally make their way up onto the high ground. The medevac could pick up all of these units. It doesn't. It looks like he does, or he is able to do exactly that, as siege tanks are still being added to this group. Aspire, and we are going into hive tech, roaches, siege tanks, Marines, and Marauders, and more tanks still being added at this point. Double factories and almost, 6 or 7 barracks now with 1 starport, double training medevacs this entire time. Medevac looking to do another drop, just trying to place as much pressure constantly throughout this game. Infestors and Banelings, very, very effective here. We'll see what's going to be happening next as the Overseer simply flying back again. Another hatchery has been canceled as a medevac looking to do a drop here, and it will be dropping into the gold. However, there are Zerglings there simply lying in wait, and the Zerglings will be able to finish that off. But in comes the main attack on the front door. SuperNova with a lot of siege tanks utilizing even the map terrain to make sure that those siege tanks cannot get flanked. Marines and Marauders continuing this push off over here, and it looks like SuperNova still in a very, very dominant position. Banelings now coming in. Infestors dropping in infested Terrans, and is it going to be enough? SuperNova is very deep in this positioning, but that means that some of the siege tanks and the Marauders and the Marines are not engaging at this time. So far, the Infestor is continuing this push. Marines and Marauders, another fungal growth hitting off a lot of units, but these Marines and the Marauders could just simply start attacking forward. Slivko doing the drone run, a last-ditch effort to try to save the game. It is down to 50, 54, 53 drones now after he was able to even up the score. SuperNova now gets the win as Slivko says GG. So apparently I cast the games out of order. I apologize. The games were mislabeled. So, but we do know that Slivko ends up winning this best of 5 series in 5 games, as SuperNova was able to take down 2 of the games. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.